Very good. So as Ayush mentioned, this is the first time we're presenting this particular topic as as part of our ongoing webinar series, and we're really excited to dig into this. I'm excited to see what kind of questions and comments come out of it. But as you can see on your screen, and as Ayush mentioned earlier, right, the topic of our conversation today is really around machine learning, artificial intelligence, and how you can leverage those emerging technologies to really enrich your content to, as the title of the webinar implies, right, enhance searchability and findability as your customers come and try to find your product information and get information to help them solve a problem that they may be facing, get more information perhaps as part of their pre-sales research that they're doing before they actually purchase from you, and so forth. So the title is Don't Search, Find. There's an important distinction there. We want to enrich our content with machine learning and artificial intelligence. I am your presenter for today. My name is Chad Dybdahl. I'm a solutions consultant with Adobe Technical Communications. Going on 3 years here with Adobe. Got to say, been a fun and fast 3 years, pandemic notwithstanding. So really looking forward to leading the session today, and really hoping that everyone is able to maybe get something out of it, and even if it's just some weird jokes or movie references, that's just as good, right? So let's talk about metadata, right? We mentioned the topic here is machine learning and artificial intelligence, but really what we're specifically looking at is how to enrich your product information, your technical content with metadata in a way that, again, leverages those artificial intelligence and machine learning capabilities that are becoming available in the marketplace, right? And this is an area where I think the technical communications space has typically lagged behind, right, in terms of leveraging metadata, really enriching the content with this information, and we'll see some examples of maybe some organizations that do this really well that I hope will resonate with you in a little bit. But I think the first thing to talk about is, first of all, what is metadata, right? So if you think about the content that you're producing in support of a product or service, for example, that's just data, right? That's just information. Metadata is, if you're unaware, right, information about the information. So, for example, it might be something telling you which product, for example, the content is for, or which feature of a product feature or the content is for. And it can become very granular when we start talking about structured content management and things like topic-based authoring, where we want to surface a particular piece of content that might be relevant for a certain screen in an application, for example, that you're documenting, a certain function of a product that you're writing, again, documentation for. So it's a way of telling the customer, ultimately, right, your audience, a way of telling your customer more about the information that they're about to consume. I might have a collection of topics, and I might want to apply metadata to those to make them more findable for my my customers, my audience, and so forth. So as a consumer, which we all are, this is something you use all the time, right? Use this on a daily basis when you're doing all kinds of things in leisure activities, shopping activities, things like that. So this metadata touches many facets of our online existence, right? Particularly when we start thinking about the entertainment, particularly shopping applications. Obviously, you get those recommendations. Bought something in the past from, for example, Amazon. Items bubbling up to the surface that might be related or relevant to your personal shopping experience, and that's all powered by metadata, right? So let's take a look at a couple of examples. One of my favorite things to do in my leisure time is listen to music, right? And I have a vinyl record collection which I've uploaded to. There's a vinyl sort of inventory site called Discogs that I actually have added all of the vinyl records that I own to, and that uses metadata to organize that content, alphabetically by artist or title or album name, whatever the case might be, right? If you think about transferring that to the digital realm, right? Streaming services, for example, right? I've got the Spotify logo on this slide for reasons that are probably obvious, but every time you are searching for a specific song or a specific artist, album, or a genre even, right? Those are all examples of metadata, right? Song title, name of an album the song is on, the artist, of course, the year it was released. This is all information about the information, but you don't listen to that data, right? That would be weird. You just use it to find the content that you're looking to consume, right? And just like I mentioned the idea of these shopping recommendations as well. Spotify and other streaming music services also make recommendations for you based on your listening history. You might use one thing I do all the time is I just put on background music using a radio station or a playlist. All of that is driven by metadata. So Spotify or whatever streaming service you use knows what you've listened to in the past, right? It has used the metadata associated with that content that you've listened to in the past in order to project the type of content you might like to listen to that may be related to that. And it's not perfect, right? Sometimes my streaming service plays some music that I'm not super interested in, and then you hit the thumbs down, right? Hit the thumbs down, not ever going to play that again. That's again driven by metadata. So it's all metadata driven. All of these experiences that we're having, and I want to think about experiences a lot here today. Driving those experiences is metadata, right, behind the scenes. You don't necessarily interact with it directly all of the time, but it's there. That's one example. Another, I think, really obvious example is finding something to watch on Netflix or HBO Max or whatever the case might be. You go to your home screen in Netflix, that's entirely metadata driven, right? The categories that they have. Category is a piece of metadata, right? So quirky comedies or new on Netflix, those are all metadata driven categories that you as a consumer use all the time, right, in order to find the next thing you're going to watch. And then maybe you're continuing to watch something. That's also metadata tied to you rather than necessarily the content. You're currently watching the new David Attenborough documentary, right? That's metadata. It's grabbing that information, and it's tracking what you're watching in order to make recommendations for you in the future about what you may enjoy watching next, for example. Another example is you go to an app store, right? Android or iOS, doesn't really matter, right? All of those are, again, driven by metadata, right? So it's going to be, again, those categories. Is it a game? Is it a productivity app? Is it, whatever the case might be, entertainment? So those categories are metadata driven. And every time you download an app and after you've used it for a little while, it wants you to rate it, right? Again, you're providing metadata to help drive the experiences of other users in the future, right? So this idea of gathering information about our product, right? Our music, our video. A slide I didn't actually think to make here, but which makes probably the most sense here is about something like Amazon, right? Where you might have recently purchased a drone, for example, in my case, right? And now I get all kinds of recommendations for different accessories for that drone, right? I can go ahead and buy those accessories if I'm so inclined. So it makes making recommendations based on your interests and your history much simpler in order to deliver you the most relevant content for your experience. And that's all part of a digital experience, bringing people to the content that is going to be most relevant for them, making their lives easier, particularly when we're talking about something like product documentation, right? Really helping them find the content that may be related to a specific query that they have. But then also, if we're also gathering feedback, right? So somebody who found this article useful or interesting may also find this collection of articles interesting, and that might be ranked based on usefulness or how many times people have actually viewed the article, right? So now we're starting to talk about analytics, and that also driving these types of experience as well. But I want to ask if you noticed anything about those last few slides, right? So there was one word in there that I think is really key when we start talking about our experiences that we're delivering to our customer. And that really is, I never sit down at night for a day of work, maybe after dinner with my wife on the couch. And what I don't say to her is, let's search for something on Netflix, right? That could take all night. There's so much content there. What am I actually searching for, right? That's not the word I use. That's not an activity that I actually want to participate in, right? I don't want to search, right? That's not fun, right? Searching is something that we do in very specific scenarios, right? I mean, there's always a search bar on the web page, but that's not my objective. I don't want to search, right? So searching is something that we do for things like lost pets. I don't know where that pet is, right? There's no metadata associated with this pet unless we've chipped them, I guess. But even then, I've got to find them to scan it. So I search for example, a lost pet. Thankfully, I never had to do that, but did, right? You would be searching. Another thing we search for is socks that have gone missing. Who knows where these things go? And is there some type of interdimensional transport available within the drying machine or the washing machine? I don't even know which one they disappear from, right? We search for missing socks, right? That's something that we search for because they don't have anything better to do for it. And we also search for things in junk drawers. And I hope this is sort of an international reference because certainly I know that I have something that looks like this in my house. And I know with a fair amount of certainty. It's just this drawer and it totally disorganized, right? Maybe you've got a couple of bins in there for batteries or there's a lot of gum in this one, but it's just a place for things that don't necessarily have a place or an organizational strategy associated with them. So again, nobody wants to search, right? I don't want to search for a movie to watch. I don't want to search for some music to listen to. I don't necessarily even want to search for products to buy, right? Although I also don't want to blindly just click buy on everything that Amazon recommends. I would be in a very different financial situation if that happened, right? But searching is not what we're after as an experience. The experience of searching is typically fairly frustrating. You feel like you're out in a field, just looking for things with your laptop like this gentleman. I'm sure there's a story behind that. But I don't want to search. That's not my objective. My objective is to find things, right? I don't, I'll use a search box to do that, but once I've searched for, I recently bought an extension cord from some outdoor lighting I'm doing. I bought that from Amazon, right? So I searched for extension cord, and then I used the, sorted it by length, right? I filtered it by needed to be an outdoor extension cord. I also wanted it to be white to match the siding of my house. But those were just search facets, really, checkboxes that I clicked, and it narrowed down my results. So I wanted to find a specific thing. Really want to spend a lot of time searching for, typing out the entire description of this object that I wanted to have delivered to me. So we think about that experience, right? The experience of sitting down in front of the TV at night and watching or finding content to watch on Netflix or HBO Max or whatever the case might be. We think about that that experience of starting, a streaming radio service, right? And just, okay, we're starting with this song, and you do whatever you want to from there, Spotify, based on information you have about me. I don't want to spend a lot of time building a playlist and all that sort of thing. I just want to have that content delivered to me based on things that the system knows that I like. Now, and that's all again based on, first of all, metadata, right? But above that, right, is algorithms, right? And really understanding and connecting those dots programmatically, right? So we want to think about how we can create and deliver these experiences for our customers in a way that's not making them feel like all they can do is search, right? When really what they want to do is find. So shifting gears a little bit, what about your product information or documentation, the content you produce in support of your customers? What does that look like? A lot of times what we'll see is, there's a bunch of PDFs on the site. I can search based on some criteria, and maybe I get something useful back, but it's in a PDF. It's not necessarily exactly the piece of information I'm looking for, but it's another object in which to search, essentially. So I download the PDF and then I have to search in there. I'm doing double duty on my search, right? So what about your content specifically? Is it a junk drawer? If I go to your site and try to find content for a specific problem I'm having or a specific product I'm interested in, am I going to find a PDF? Is it going to be easy to find? Once I get it, how much finding do I need to then do within the PDF itself? So I just kind of think about a mental picture of the content that you're producing and delivering, right, which is really what we're talking about, content delivery. And what is the experience for your users as they look to search your content and hopefully find it, right? And if it's a junk drawer, stay tuned, right? Because I think we'll have some interesting things to show you here. And even if it's not a junk drawer today, right? Even if it's not, chances are that you are implementing a metadata strategy. It's really driving that experience, driving the findability of your content, and making it more easily accessible to your audience as they look to get that information that they're after. If you've got a good metadata strategy, that's great. And we have some things to say about that. If you don't, or maybe you have inconsistently applied metadata, which is a really common problem, right? We can, I think, really show you some things that'll get you excited here in just a moment. So if you currently have that good metadata strategy, it's a good structure, right? It really helps findability. It really helps drive those experiences that we're talking about here. If that's the case today, chances are a person did that, right? Looking at a piece of content, tagging it for a product or a product feature or whatever the case might be, odds are a person did that for you. And when I think about a person doing that work, right, it's super time consuming, right? I have to think about the content in a way that I have to put myself sort of in the user's shoes. I have to think about, well, what would they search for that I want to deliver this particular piece of content to them? Right? What search terms should this content be delivered in response to, essentially? And the other piece is any kind of human-related process is inherently error-prone, right? I've seen tons of situations where the metadata is just missing, right? It just didn't get applied for one reason or another. And we're all busy people, right? And that might not be the best defined step in your documentation life cycle, for example, right? So I might have some inconsistency or some, first of all, the time-consuming nature of this activity. It takes up the time of a person who could otherwise be creating more content, and the use of a human in this case, right? I see as over the long term negative, right? So if that person, metadata guru, right, your library sciences person, which every once in a while I run into an organization with with a library sciences person who's really driving the metadata strategy, and I just think that's amazing, right? So this idea of library scientists and things is, I think, sometimes an overlooked aspect of our technical communication strategies, particularly. But if I change ships, right? If that person leaves the organization, I hire a new person to apply tags, they're not going to do it in the same way, right? And it's not always going to be done on a consistent basis, right? So, here, I think consistency means two things. It really means, is every piece of content tagged, right? Has it been enriched with metadata in the first place? And then secondly, has that been done in a way that is consistent from one document to the next, from one deliverable to the next, from one topic to the next? What does that consistency look like? Where's the kind of quality control there as we start to think about the real world performance from searching for content that leverages some of these metadata pieces, tags, or whatever the case might be. Right? So I think about consistency. I think about sustainability, right? And I think about certainly making sure we're not spending a bunch of time on a task that ultimately I believe can be handled by machines. So going back to the Netflix example we talked about, Netflix does not tag their content on a manual basis, right? I have no idea how many videos are available on Netflix, but no human has ever tagged one of those videos, at least in any meaningful sense, on a manual basis. They've developed an algorithm that handles that based on your view history or different types of things that genre, right? So drama or comedy, whatever the documentary, whatever the case might be. And there's a really interesting kind of outlier that's specific to Netflix. I think they called it the Netflix Challenge. This was a while back, and they offered a prize to anybody who could improve their algorithm by 10%, specifically for one movie that it turns out the algorithm at the time was really bad at predicting whether or not you'd like it. And that movie is Napoleon Dynamite. I know how many of the folks on the call here have watched Napoleon Dynamite, but it turns out that Netflix's algorithm at the time, it was basically a coin toss, right? If they recommended it, there was a 50-50 shot that you were actually going to like that type of, it's a really kind of quirky movie. It has some really very dry humor in it, which from that description indicates that I should have liked it. And I loathed that movie, right? And it was so divisive with even people who might like that type of movie ordinarily, right? That they started this fund and had a prize associated with anybody who could actually improve their algorithm for this one movie, right? Because that's sort of the canary in the coal mine, if you will. Thinking about this Napoleon Dynamite, this movie that you either love it or you hate it, and there's really no middle ground. But manual tagging is not going to solve that problem, right? Because it requires this kind of in-depth analysis of a user's viewing history, what they may have liked or not liked in the past, and predicting whether or not they would like this specific movie in the future. In any case, they don't do any of that manually, right? They leave that to their algorithms, they leave that to the machines. And my suggestion here is that neither should you, right? This idea of manually tagging, particularly in the structured authoring space where we're talking about component-based authoring, we're talking about, not just a collection of PDFs that need to be tagged, right? But individual content components that are typically very small in size, therefore increasing the number of actual objects that need to be tagged, right? How do you scale to that? Right? If I'm authoring in Microsoft Word today, and I'm looking to implement a structured authoring or topic-based authoring paradigm in my organization, how does tagging scale to that explosion, really, of objects that you have to manage in order to produce the ultimate documentation, whether that still be a PDF, a website, or both? Kind of different scope of what needs to be tagged there, and I think you lose a handle on that very quickly as you approach topic-based authoring. So as you might imagine, I'm proposing a problem, and it wouldn't be a very good webinar at all if I didn't also have in my back pocket a bit of a solution here. So I'm sure all of you know who Adobe is. You did sign up for our webinar after all. But one of our products in our portfolio that you may not be aware of is Adobe Sensei. And this is Adobe's machine learning and artificial intelligence platform. Really drives a lot of digital experiences already. It's been around for quite some time. And it kind of got its start because we're Adobe again, with the automatic tagging and classification of images. So if you give it a picture of a dog, it'll tell you, well, there's a dog in there. And I've seen that these machine learning platforms, again, that learning piece is important, can be trained over time to recognize the breed of dog that is being represented in an image. And so that's kind of just as an example of where Sensei comes from, what it's used for today is this idea of automatically tagging digital assets in order to facilitate not only findability when I want to use that digital asset somewhere, but also driving search engine optimization tied to that information. And that's all going to be rolled up in this idea of metadata and tagging. right? So if you haven't heard of Sensei before, we're gonna learn a little bit about it here and actually see it in action in a moment. But that concept of digital assets is one that I think has been incomplete for a while, at least in the conventional wisdom. And what I mean by that is, people think of an image or video, right? Those are digital assets. But one of the things that's been left out in the cold for a long time is this idea of text-based content being a digital asset as well, and one that should be managed in the same way as traditional digital assets, right? The images are ones and zeros, the videos are all ones and zeros, so is your text that you're producing, unless you're handwriting it out, which I hope you're not. So these are all digital assets. Right? So whereas Adobe Sensei started its life as a traditional digital asset aware system, right? Automatically tagging images and now videos and smart cropping. And there's a really cool thing it can do with PDFs. We call it liquid PDF, where it can actually resize to the device that uses Adobe Sensei as well. So it can do a lot of different things. But what I want to talk about today is using and leveraging machine learning and artificial intelligence to enrich your technical content, much in the same way I mentioned automatic tagging of images, automatic cropping of videos, right? I want to take that concept and extend it to kind of the artificial distinction that's been made between text and visual assets in the past. Your technical content is a digital asset. It can be processed and tagged by machine learning platforms. And what if that happened automatically, right? What if I didn't need to have a person touch every topic, right? Every chunk of content that I'm producing? What if it was just happening automatically and we can teach it and it can learn over time that, hey, this tag wasn't exactly appropriate, right? But we're going to actually tell you about that, Sensei, and you're no longer going to apply that particular tag to content like this. What if that all happened automatically behind the scenes and super fast in order to enrich the content without human intervention? We want to be able to extract common keywords from our content. That's really what we're talking about here. Is tags are essentially keywords. And if I think about DITA authoring, right, there's a keyword element, and I can go in as an author and add keywords to my content, right? But that's really time consuming. Not the actual act of adding the keyword, at least one at a time, right? But the whole concept of I have to think about this content. I have to add each keyword individually as I see it, right? I don't want to have to do that anymore. It's not scalable. As content grows, and content never shrinks, right? It just keeps growing. It just doesn't scale to do this type of work manually anymore. So I want to extract those keywords. I want to enrich my search results, right? I want to be able to really make, and let's start calling them find results. Right? They're not search results anymore. That's because once we start enriching our content with these automatically generated keywords and other types of metadata, right? We start going from, I'm sorry, Dave, I'm afraid I can't do that, right? Which is so 2001, right? How outdated is that? But we want to go from, I'm sorry, Dave, I'm afraid I can't do that, to, you're welcome, Dave, I can certainly do that. Sensei is a little friendlier in this regard. It just does what you want, whereas the reference I was making was, of course, to HAL, the artificial intelligence in 2001: A Space Odyssey, who, killed his crew by locking them out of the spacecraft. And that's a spoiler, but it's a really old movie, so I think the time has passed where that is actually. And by the way, this even works if your name is not Dave, right? So we're very name agnostic, right? We can do it if you're Dave. We can do it if you're not Dave. Either way. So, and we'll always, by the way, open the pod bay doors for you. Never going to leave you stranded in space when letting you get in. All right. That's enough pointless movie jokes. So I think the next thing we would like to do here with the time we have remaining is to see what I'm talking about in action. And I'm sure everyone has now breathed a collective sigh of relief. Stop with the jokes at the slideshow and actually show us something interesting. So just by way of introduction, what I am about to show you, we're going to start with a Word document. Those of you who have seen my webinars in the past know that this is one of my favorite features of Adobe's DITA CCMS, which we call XML documentation for Adobe Experience Manager. I like to show Word documents being migrated to DITA automatically in seconds. So we're going to start with that today again. So we're going to automatically extract that content from the Word document and create structured DITA XML content, thinking about structured authoring and how we can enrich these content components with metadata, right? And one of the things I want to show you after I've imported that content is, by default, it doesn't get any metadata applied to it, right? It's just, well, you get a title, right? But other than that, there's no metadata associated with this content as well. So we'll take a peek at that very quickly before we go ahead and actually move it to a special location in my demo environment where we're actually going to send the content off to Adobe Sensei for processing. It'll come back in a matter of seconds. I should probably not have said that, but we can fix that problem, that no metadata problem, with a few clicks, and we can go ahead and see what Sensei has up its sleeve and see what types of things we can accomplish with machine-generated tags for our structured content. And so with that, slideshow has mercifully ended. Now we're going to switch gears and jump into Adobe Experience Manager. Those of you who haven't seen it before, this is what it looks like. I've got Adobe Experience Manager logo up there on the upper left-hand side of the screen, and there's a whole bunch of stuff going on in AE, which is short for Adobe Experience Manager, of course. What we're going to do is actually just go into our content repository here. I've got a special folder set up for content migration. You can see we have a number of source formats that we support migration from, and that migration is always to DITA XML. So I have a Word document, so I'm going to go in my Word files folder. I have this, well, let's just go ahead and take a look at the document I'm about to import. That it opened on my other screen. So you can see here, got a whole bunch of stuff in it, a bunch of headings and things. But this is what it looks like beforehand in my Word document. And I'm just going to go ahead and then drag and drop that Word document into my Word files folder here. It'll be tagged with that processing label that you see top of this card, and it should in fact be done by now. So when I go here and take a look at my AM forms documentation, that's what we were just looking at, we can see that from that Word document I've extracted a DITA map and a number of topics and some images. So, okay, we've got our content objects into the repository, but let's take a look at some of the metadata for these. So I'm just going to pick one random here, and I'm going to look at its properties. This is where we would see any metadata that had been applied to it. So there's a couple things here, right? I've got my title again, right? That's sort of an unambiguous piece of metadata. I mean, it maps directly to familiar with the DITA standard, maps directly to the DITA title element. And then there's a couple of other things here, right? It's got a created date. So there's system metadata, but that's not going to help my customers necessarily find this content unless they somehow knew when this particular content was created. We have a document status here, and then a couple other pieces of metadata are, okay, this topic is used in a map, and it refers to an image. None of that's going to help my customers find content later on. Right? So that's all I have right after importing the content in terms of metadata. So what I want to do next is actually just take this content and or level. I want to move this to a special folder that I've got set up that Sensei is kind of watching, and Sensei is going to go ahead and once I move this content into that folder, it's going to tag that automatically for me. And this is just for demonstration purposes. I could have this run as a workflow on every new topic that I create, or anytime I save, go ahead and send it off to, or maybe when it's approved, probably would be best, right? Send that off to Sensei, have it do its tagging, and be done with it. In my case, I've just got a special folder that I need. I'm going to take that content that we were just looking at, and I'm going to move that into my special watched folder, which happened to be called DITA demo. Moving that, give me a couple warnings. We've got some references going on here. Here's my list of things to be moved. And we're just going to move that. And now you can see we're in that DITA demo folder that I moved it to. There's my folder of AEM forms documentation that we were just importing. And if I take a look at these topics now, let's look at the same one. I think it was this one that we took a look at. So I'm just going to select that and again reveal its properties. Do that, and we still have a title, right? That hasn't changed. We still have those references I was talking about, and we still have a document state. But check this out. There is a whole list of essentially keywords that have been extracted from this content and automatically applied to this and all of the other content actually that I just uploaded, right? So user management, you might see that might be a way for a way that something somebody might search for, right? Required software, target environment, right? These are all good tag words or tags. Maybe Adobe is not, right? I know that I'm going to be, if I'm looking for information about AEM, I'm probably looking for it from Adobe. So I can really easily remove that, right? So I can come in here and trim these results, and that would also be part of that feedback loop I talked about earlier of training the machine learning algorithm, right? I don't need you to tag everything with Adobe because all of this content is from Adobe, right? That's not really useful. But you can see here it's got some pretty good, I think, useful keywords. And we can go ahead and take a look at another one. That was AEM forms on JEE installation and deployment list. Sounds like a scintillating summer read. But let's go ahead and see installation, configuration, and deployment overview. We'll take a look at the properties for that as well. And so you can see here, again, all of this content, all of these keywords rather, have been extracted from my content, and those will then bubble up when I think about or try to search for things. So let's search for configuration manager. Hopefully, trying this live is probably not the best plan, but let's see. So we want to get this topic back. If I search for configuration manager, go ahead and do that here with a really robust search interface. Configuration manager. I should be able to get back. Actually, this content is kind of all over the place in my my repository, but this first one, right, that bubbled up to the top because it's been tagged with a keyword, as opposed to, and I'm actually glad this happened, because these results are ranked, right, based on the relevance of the match. And so the one I uploaded just 5 minutes ago, right, bubbled up to the top because that keyword was applied. Whereas the text is still in the topic, so it's going to show up, but it's going to be ranked lower, right, in these two topics. So really, I think a great way of showing how we can use keywords to actually tune search results based on that keyword having been applied versus the text just being some. Have configuration manager applied to a number of these topics, right? And I can get my French indications here as well, by the way. And so really, I think a very quick and easy way, and also one that learns over time to actually go ahead and really improve the search results that you're delivering to your customers, all in support of finding content, longer searching, right? Searching is something I have to do, but I don't want to spend a lot of time on the search. I want to actually find that I'm looking for. And so with all of that said, I think I want to thank everybody for their time today, and certainly want to invite any questions in the pod. I think we do have a few minutes. And then also, certainly if you do have any more detailed questions, if for some reason you'd like to talk to me yourself or any one of my colleagues, you can go ahead and write us at techcomm@adobe.com, or I can also be reached directly at Dybdahl@adobe.com. I want to take a screenshot there because good luck remembering how to spell my name after I take this slide down. So that was the presentation, and I don't know if we have any, there are a few chats or questions here in the chats. We'd have one question: will this work in search on publish instance of AEM as well? And looks like this is in reference to Solr. And for those of you who don't know, Solr is a search engine that is commonly integrated with Adobe Experience Manager. It's actually an extension of the out-of-the-box search engine that we provide called Lucene. But absolutely, yes, right? This is just information in the repository that can be packaged up with the published content. And so we looked at the authoring side here today, but absolutely this content operates as any other tag would in Adobe Experience Manager and can be pushed through my delivery platform and then leveraged there as part of, again, a Solr index, for example. Right. Great.
Awesome stuff, Brett. It seems that we have lost our host, Ayush. He's,
oh no.
I guess he has some connection internet problems. So let me instead go a little bit through have in the chat. The always great Jeremy was asking, love the Netflix analogy. Great to see Adobe bring in AI and machine learning applications to the world of documentation. And I think that's a good statement because this has been pending in the industry, in the technical communication industry for a while, I think. And AI and ML are around for a relatively long time. And have catched up in the last years in terms of the quality that you can achieve with it. In the translation industry, for example, AI and ML are around for quite some time now. And in technical documentation, we were a little bit behind here in our small ecosphere of technical communication. So really great to see that this kind of stuff is coming from Adobe now.
And well, I think that's a great point, Stefan, is that this is an area, I think, where technical communications in general has lagged behind. One of the really beautiful things about Adobe Sensei is that it is automatically included in our DITA CCMS called XML documentation for Adobe Experience Manager.
Right.
And I'm not aware of any other CCMS vendors that can say that.
I'm neither aware of that. There was a question from Seattle. I hope I spelled it right. Razek. Will this work in search on publish instance of AM as well after indexing? In brackets Solar.
So I think I read that one out loud earlier. So yes.
Okay.
Yep. And there was a follow-up question with the idea of, is it integrated with AM already? And I believe for 6.4 that answer, I don't know the answer for 6.4 to be quite honest, but 6.5 and above, I believe the answer is yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. Categorization is very cool, but has there been any work done on using NLP and AI to answer questions like, what is the maximum query size of an AAP search? Brian Popp was asking that.
Yeah, that's a great question, and absolutely, natural language processing is a core feature of Sensei as well. So this is where we get into a really interesting conversation about, can I use my technical content to feed a chatbot, right? And really understand the intent, which is what we're talking about here, right? That natural language processing matching up with an intent that I might have defined for some content. And so yes, I think that is certainly something that could be achieved with Sensei. It's not part of the product yet, but and I should say it's not part of the XML documentation product yet, but Sensei does do natural language processing.
Cool. Do we have here? Rainer was asking for case studies. Are there case studies for introducing machine learning available?
Oh, a little early, I think, for us on the XML product side for machine learning. We do have one or two customers doing a beta of this now, and it is going to be rolled into the product, I believe, on our roadmap coming up here in the next year or so, but not to the point of case studies with those customers just yet, although, as you might imagine, we are keen to do that. Stay tuned.
Good. What else do we have? I think we got Ayush, our host, also back.
Hey, hi everyone. Sorry about the thanks, Chad. So sorry about the internet issues at my end. So I can see one last question, Chad. The question is, can you talk a little bit about how this technology would impact the workflow for tech writers? And this question is from Joe Fezen, if I'm pronouncing it correctly. And he mentioned that he writes manuals using InDesign and exports them to PDFs, and they post these PDFs on their website.
Sure. So one of the things I talked about a little bit during the presentation was the concept of scale, right? And when I'm delivering document-based, kind of PDF-based deliverables, right? It's certainly as Sensei can actually read in PDFs, right? Especially if they've been created in InDesign, that's not a problem. So it could use that as a means to process your entire PDF and hit keywords. But one of the limitations there is, right, I have to download the whole PDF and I still need to find things within it, right? It's not going to add bookmarks for different things into the actual document itself. So I think where this really scales nicely is when I've adopted a component-based content management strategy, right? And I have many more content objects to tag and simply cannot scale to that. So I think there would be some benefits certainly with kind of traditional PDF-based documentation, but those benefits are going to be magnified, many times if I'm thinking about topic-based authoring rather than kind of document-based authoring.
Thanks, Chad. Then there was another question from Seattle again, where question is that they're upgrading to 6.5.6 and if they can implement the Adobe Sensei. So Right now, Adobe Sensei is present only in the cloud services offering, but what we'll do is internally also drop in a note about the interest on 6.5. And then there's a last question from Felix Klein, if I pronounce this correctly again, that and they're thanking you, Chad, for the presentation. They really loved how you showed them how to enrich the documents or text with keywords. And then there's a follow-up question on which the question is that are there other types of metadata Sensei can be used or trained for to enrich docs? And there are a few examples like language, information type, or there any other kind of metadata?
Sure. Yeah. Some of those things are actually system metadata in many content management systems, right? So information type, if we're talking about a data-based authoring methodology, would be tied to the topic type itself, right? Or maybe tied to an information model or a template that's been used, that kind of thing. So, right now it's keyword extraction, but there's certainly a lot more ground that we could cover there as well. And I see, Ayush, you've responded to Jeremy, but that is really, I think, the next level, right? When we start thinking about helping content creators to author content, right? Suggesting content that might exist in the system already that they're starting to write, for example. It's really, I think, going to become a very powerful way to really streamline authoring workflows, really facilitate deduplication of content, and also just help you get the content out the door faster in a much more consistent way by allowing machine learning and artificial intelligence to help you find content that you might not yet be aware of.
Yeah, thanks, Chad. And Jeremy just posted that that would Sensei can be used for content reuse applications and sessions as well. So the answer to that is yes. That is something that is already in works, and we are in advanced POC stages for that. So that's definitely one of the problems that we are looking to solve as part of enhancement to this service.
Guys, don't give away features that are coming in the future.
That's right.
Yeah. So, and Brian, thanks you, Chad, for the demos. I think there are a lot of thanks coming your way. Right? Chad, this was a great done presentation.
Great. We made it exactly an hour, which is very precise again.
Perfect. Yeah. I think then we can stop the recording. We keep the room open for a few more minutes for some chatter, and otherwise we already say goodbye and thank you.